Welcome to another Pro Basketball Talk Extra. I'm here, Kurt Helin, with Corey Robinson. And Corey, Game 3, Denver Nuggets, hang on, find a way to win. Does this win for Denver change how you perceive and feel about the series at all?
Yes. I think when you saw Game 2, it's been well written about how they almost basically kind of gave the game away. It was very much the Lakers had to win that game on a miraculous shot by Anthony Davis. It was just spectacular. But the Nuggets were right there. It wasn't the first game blowout. So Game 3 was a pretty dominant performance for the most part. They were even up by 20 points at one point. There was that late surge by the Lakers, but they managed to stave them off. So from my perspective, they've normally gotten down to a 3-1 and had to win three, games back to back to back. Now they're showing, hey, we can kind of punch a little earlier and kind of take control of the game and still stave off a very good Lakers team late in the stretch. So very good for the Nuggets right there. Yeah,
you know what? You listened to Mike Malone after the game, and he said that this felt like the Clippers series. They get crushed in Game 1. In this case, they flipped which one they won, and they felt they should have lost, but they felt they should have won Game 3 against the Clippers. But they feel like they're in the same spot. Down 2-1, they don't want to go down 3-1 to the Lakers, but down 2-1, they're starting to play better. They're starting to see what works for them. They're starting to see what they've got to do. I think they've got a chance in this series, a real chance. Jamal Murray is playing, man. That is a confident man out there on the court right now, Corey.
Yeah, I love the way their team is designed because you have a guy like Joker who basically is the steam engine for that team. I mean, he just goes in every single night and does work 28 and 10. Like you could just go to the bank and cash that. That's how reliable he is. And then Jamal can take over a game, in a second. What he was doing at the end of Game 3 was nothing short of phenomenal. When he had that shot on Caruso, he's feeling himself. He's dancing on people. He's cutting loose. He's having fun, and that's the best Jamal Murray out there. He reminds me a lot of Kyler Murray, the way that he plays, and it's just energetic, exciting, and he can take over like that.
And he's got that gravity now. He's starting to do it. The thing with him before is he could hit threes. I mean, he's shooting much better from 3 during the playoffs, but he was an okay finisher at the rim. So if he got by you and you had some protection, you weren't as worried. He's finishing at a much higher level. He's damaging you when he gets in the paint now, and then he's damaging you also when he's outside. That's a big change for them, and it's huge. I love the confidence they're playing with. The key for me, for the Lakers side, it comes back to their defense. They played it in the fourth quarter. They have to get stops and then get out and run. Their half-court offense, even against Denver defense, it's just not good. They're just not that great in the half-court. They have LeBron and Anthony Davis, and they'll get some buckets, but they scored less than a point per possession in the half court last time, way below. And if that's not going to get better, Denver's defense is going to improve and focus on things. They've got to get those transition buckets.
Yeah, they're scary in transition. And it's funny to me because I'm looking at, Anthony Davis. I'm taking him one-on-one against anybody in the game. I'm really he's unbelievable. He can score on you with his back to the basket, face up, whatever. But the crazy thing is Joker's still putting up these numbers, against Anthony Davis, who is the runner-up for the Defensive Player of the Year. He's still going to work every day. And you're right, Rondo and those guys on the Lakers, they need to get in those passing lanes and create those transition opportunities to get Denver out of their rhythm. But the last point I want to make really quick is what you said about Jamal Murray is phenomenal because what he's doing is he's finishing to the rim, but he's a great passer. So you're starting to see these later games. So he's driving and he'll hang in the air and then just making a really nice dime to someone underneath. Last game, it was Jeremy Grant who was there a lot. So I like how Denver's main 2 guys, both Murray and Jokic, are both phenomenal passers.
That opens up so much. It's a lot more like the Warriors, right? Like with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson stuff. You had to worry about the ball movement and the guys off the ball, Draymond Green, all those guys, Kevin Durant, as much as you did how much they could score, and that's what made them dangerous. Denver's got a lot of that. They're really rolling this season, which leads to the question, what about next season? I don't know if you saw this. Adam Silver comes out and says the NBA season, look, you already said December 1st, then kind of pushed it back to, probably not before Christmas, then said on this week, probably the first of the year. I'll tell you the sources I'm talking to around the league. I'm hearing February, maybe March. They're pushing it back and pushing it back. I get why they're doing it, though, because I think it's about the money. Kind of always about the money, Corey.
Yeah, I definitely see that. But it's interesting because my question is from a just like a player perspective and a coach perspective. How do you approach that season whenever it is set? We saw this year; it was very strange, in the sense that the season just kind of got upended for a few months. No one knew exactly when it was coming back. So how do you get your guys in the gym and how do you get them ready? Now, since the players have already experienced that once, I think that's going to be a huge edge for teams going into this upcoming season where they already know how to train in an uncertain timetable. So I'm very curious to see which teams thrive in that environment, which ones haven't. Will we see more teams like the Nuggets come through, like the Heat come through, and kind of surprise people on a national stage?
Yeah, and look, we don't know where we're going to be with a vaccine come, next February or March, and where, how many people are going to be able to congregate. Owners want 40% of the league revenue comes from gate receipts and people going to games. They want that money back in. But it might be a situation, like you said, where half the season isn't that way. Half the season is mini bubbles with teams coming in and out and kind of that funky setup. Then maybe by midseason, they're able to get rolling. The kink in all of this, the Olympics. The Tokyo Olympics start in July. That date is set and looks pretty locked in. Corey, if they do that, do you favor something like an NHL-style break? Or if you're the NBA, do you just say, sorry?
Yeah, I don't know. Would you, as a fan, would you be down with that?
The challenge for the league is, as in America, I don't know how that plays. But here's the thing. You think about this year, if it had gone off and we'd had, even with Corona, we'd sent a team of guys who didn't make the postseason. Karl Anthony Towns, Steph Curry, Trae Young. We can roll out a team of guys who don't make the playoffs here in America, and it's still stupid good. If you start taking Jokic, Dragic off of teams, or run through you got, Rudy Gobert goes off Utah and some of their other French team players who made the playoffs. It's not the same. They don't have that kind of depth. Those countries are really putting pressure on the U.S. on the NBA. Like you gotta let us have our guys, because otherwise it looks like Olympic soccer, right? Like it's an under 23 tournament, maybe a couple stars show up.
Yeah, and the thing that I'm very curious about is understanding, like, these athletes are people, right? And we saw the overwhelming reluctance for a lot of guys to even want to go to the bubble with all the social justice issues happening in America. So I wonder if the guys who would be eligible to go play for the Olympics would actually want to go play and represent the United States. I don't know how many guys would want to do that. And I'd be curious to even say, whether maybe there is a resurgence in saying, I feel a newfound pride in being American and I want to do this to show and change that narrative. I could see it go either way, but just following the summer and seeing that there was even, and especially what happened in the bubble with what George Hill and the Bucks, did with their not a boycott, but strike. That I think is evidence, almost like a little bit of a precursor to the Olympics next year. I wonder if there would be any type of that kind of element of a strike or something like that.
I don't know if there'd be a strike, but I think the players would look at it like they look at the bubble, right? Which they ultimately stayed because they're like, man, we can make an impact here. We can go in here and really have our voices heard. If you're trying to do that internationally, there might not be a bigger stage than the Olympics. You get a lot more cameras, a lot more voice, a lot more media listening to you from around the world, not just the United States. Look, everything is up in the air, including the NBA schedule. I have no idea where it goes from here. It's everything is fluid, and it, frankly, just like I said, it kind of all comes back down to the money and how fast they can get back in buildings. And hey, it's possible that you can be playing games in an arena in Georgia before you can in Los Angeles. It's going to be. I do not envy the NBA trying to even that out. And hey, how about this? Just to bounce it off, the Buffalo Raptors for a season.
That would be really interesting. I need that merch. I need a hoodie. The Buffalo Raptors hoodie.
No, that stuff would go crazy, wouldn't it?
Yeah, the WNBA orange hoodie and the Buffalo Raptors. Those are the two hoodies I'm going to need.
That orange hoodie, by the way, I love that orange hoodie. It's
so sweet.
One more big piece of NBA news came out this week. Billy Donovan takes over as the coach for the Chicago Bulls. Not totally out of the blue, not one of the names that was coming up a lot, but first meeting, they fell in love. Do you like this hire for the Bulls?
Yes. I think the Bulls right now are really, if you're a Chicago fan, you got to be excited, right? With what you've had to endure the past few years, especially with that kind of history and tradition where, I mean, I lived 90 miles from Chicago when I was in South Bend. You know, I was right there. And there's a lot of pride in that city, right? Especially around their sports. So for them to be bad, and I mean, last year they were so I think 22 wins on the season. Like they were really, really bad as far as a team. So I think that's kind of, as a fan, you get tired of that. They brought in Karnišovas, who has an impeccable reputation, it seems like, around the league. They're starting to bring in and build that front office where they're pulling in pieces that, I mean, can really help build that franchise back up to where it was. And then now you have a coach of the year coach in Billy Donovan, who has brought the OKC Thunder into the playoffs year after year after year after year. And he coached at Florida, you know, and he had 2 championship seasons at Florida. So he knows how to handle young guys. Like he knows how to handle college guys in addition to professionals. In my mind, Chicago did a great job getting him there.
No, I'm with you. I think this is a really great fit for them. First off, it raises the bar from the last coach. Better tactically than Boylan, but also just so much better with player relations. And if you want to get free agents in the future, like that's going to matter. And that would have been an issue before. It's not now. Like they've got a guy in there who can bring people in. I'm with you. I think this makes them better. I'm not sure how much better instantly, though. I mean, you look at the East, they're not competing with the Heat or the Celtics or the Bucks next year. Then you get into that second tier, and Brooklyn's in there. I don't know that this Boston – I'm sorry. I'm not sure that the Chicago can make maybe 6 or 7. I mean, are they better than your Indiana Pacers right now? I'm not –
Dang, I got my Indiana – hey, my only team's the Spurs. Just saying, though. I want to make that very clear. My only team is the Spurs. But, yeah, you're right. The question is, you know, how long will it take to build that program? And I think what the Bulls are doing, and we've seen it over the past, I guess, since March, is just a gutting, right? I mean, it started in the front office, and then it started, you know, with coaching, and then now I wonder what the next step is. You're going to have to evaluate that roster. I think Otto Porter Jr. is making $28 million a year. So the question is, if he's your franchise guy, you gotta make a decision. Whereas, you know, Zach LaVine, like he put up numbers, and he's going to command a big contract. But you know, if you're going to pay him franchise kind of money, you got to adjust the roster. Kobe White's a great young talent coming up. Where does he fit in with Lauri Markkanen, who was one of your top build guys as well, but hasn't been performing well and has been injured? So they're going to have to look at that roster and make some really tough decisions before even getting in the conversation of what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think the next year for them, including Billy Donovan in this conversation, is really player evaluation, right? Like you've just got to see. I think Lauri Markkanen has the potential to be the kind of dangerous step-out big that you need in a modern NBA. Protect the rim a little, play inside. But if he can't stay healthy, if he can't stay on the court and make that impact, then how much are you paying him? Zach can fill it up, but are they empty calories points? Or are these, you know, can you be part of a winning team doing that? What does Kobe White develop into except, you know, like the best hair in the NBA? I'm not sure.
Good hair.
He's great hair. Like, and I'm jealous as all get out for obvious reasons. But it's, to me, like that's a team with a lot of potential, but I'm not sure where the fit is. But it's, if you've got the players, let's say you decide Markkanen isn't the exact fit you want, or White, or whatever, or, you know, Wendell Carter Jr. There's value in those guys, and you can trade them. You can move that around to get the players you do want and start to build this thing. And I think you're going to see that. It's going to be a few years process, but you've got to feel like they're on a better path than they have been under the Garpax era.
Yeah, I think right now it's going to be a change in guard in Chicago, as we've seen. And I think with the pieces that they have in place, I'd be surprised if they aren't, you know, at least competitive. But like you said, man, that roster, I look at those salaries, I look at the deals, and I'm sitting here like, man, like I don't know how you're going to build like a playoff team just like with the way it's currently kind of configured. So they're going to have to make some changes. But yeah, you're right. They definitely have a lot of talent as far as, you know, people who can either command some sort of value in trades or people you can invest in the future. But you just got to pick. You just got to pick someone and say, look, this is our guy, and build a team around him. You got to pick. Yeah,
I mean, that's actually a great question for them. Who's the alpha? Or do they still need to get that guy?
Yeah, exactly. Like Zach LaVine was the alpha last season, but that's because Otto Porter Jr. was out. Yeah. You know, so like that's kind of the question for me is, yeah, who's the one? Who's one?
And I'm not sold Otto Porter's a true number one type of player. He might, again, I think he's a 2 or 3 on an elite team. Zach LaVine may be that kind of guy too, and you've got to figure out if you've got to go get that guy still. Chicago, the advantage, man, you are a place that can lure in elite talent. There's some rep there.
Absolutely. Chicago's a great town, food town. It's big enough where you feel like you're in a major city, but it's also small enough where you can retreat. I love Chicago. It's a great town. But I think with the free agent part, that's a great point. Like, look at who Billy Donovan had on his teams, right? Like, he even brought in Chris Paul last year. So I'm sitting here thinking, okay, well, you're right. Player relations, you're in a great town, and this is a new era. If you want to get a superstar, I mean, I would say Billy Donovan's probably one of your guys. He's worked with 3 of the top superstars in the game.
Yeah,
4, right?
There's only a handful of cities, with all due respect to the emphasis on parity in the NBA, there's a handful of cities free agents will choose, elite free agents can choose to go to. Chicago can be one of those cities if they get there. Right, Corey? Well, I mean, going back to next season, what percentage chance do you give the Chicago Bulls of getting into the playoffs and slipping in as the 8th seed?
Not a high percentage. I definitely, I was there in Chicago, watched a couple of the games this winter before COVID kind of stopped the season, and it was brutal, loss after loss. So it's hard to rebuild, and make immediate change with, especially, when you're talking about everything we laid out in the past. So not high. If I was a betting man, not high.
Yeah, I might go as high as 50-50 for them if they can. Look, the key is actually staying healthy. You're going to need a full season of Markkanen, a full season of Zach LaVine, who's had issues. Corey's got White's. Everybody's got to be healthy. Then you got like a 50-50 chance, because I really do believe in Billy Donovan's ability to kind of mesh these players better. But the East isn't going to be that easy. Brooklyn was a 7 seed. My guess is they get better, right, with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Orlando's still there at the 8th seed. The back of the East, Pacers, everybody, like it's still good teams back there. It's going to be hard to climb in. So I don't know who falls back to them and gives them a chance.
Yeah, and by the way, I love Vucevic in Orlando. I really was impressed with his game. But yeah, with Chicago, right? In my mind, I'm like, look, it's going to take a little bit of time, and that's frustrating. But the good news is that it's the change of guard. It's a new era in Chicago, and I'm optimistic for the long run. But next year, I'm not that optimistic.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure they make a quick leap, but you can sell hope there now that there is something for the future, which is good. And by the way, you could sit there and have a nice Lou Malnati's pizza while you're waiting for that team to come around. It's not all bad, man, being in Chicago.
Yeah, it's a great town. I'm telling you. I love it.
I love that city too. All right. Thanks again, Corey, for doing this.
Thank you.